How's it going, everybody? It's Warren. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about a character that everybody loves, that everybody is dying to see in the MCU, and talk about the only actor that we can see playing him. And of course, we are talking about Wolverine and Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine could return and could be in the MCU. Now, before we dive into this topic, let me make something very clear. This is not about Hugh Jackman returning to the MCU to play Wolverine for the next 10 to 15 years. That is not going to happen. What this video is about is the very real possibility of him returning as the character in the MCU for a single movie or for a cameo. A return nonetheless that everybody would be super excited about, but Hugh Jackman is not going to return and play the character for another 10 years, do another 5-6 movies. That's just not going to happen. But we have some new reports today, and I'll go over some recent reports in the past that say we could see Hugh Jackman's Wolverine in the MCU. I'll talk about what Hugh Jackman has said himself about returning, talk about how he himself said that if he could be next to the Avengers, he probably would return, the very real possibility of him coming to the MCU to play his character Wolverine one more time for films such as Wolverine vs the Hulk, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and of course, Deadpool 3. And we'll break down all of that in this video, but a quick reminder that I'm still doing my Xbox One and PS4 giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be subscribed to my channel, like this video, and comment below with your thoughts. I'm picking the winner at 550,000 subscribers. So we'll start off with the most recent report and then dive into what would it take to bring Hugh Jackman back and how it's a very real possibility. The first report is from a Twitter account called Smart Tom, who has leaked some things in the past. And in his tweet, he said, "I heard that Sir Patrick Stewart's meeting with Kevin Feige was for a potential cameo in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Remember Professor X's dementia in Logan? Doctor Strange may pop out of a portal during a scene in the water tank, but vanish just as Hugh Jackman's Wolverine comes through the door and makes a crack about him talking to himself again. Quick gag that will bring down the house and not interfere with any canon. Just a wink and a smile. This also leaves a backdoor open for Deadpool to jump in the MCU. This would be absolutely incredible. A quick little cameo from Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine that would actually be in the MCU, because Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, of course, is in the MCU, but him opening a portal and then closing the portal would have no significant effect on the MCU, and like the report said, it wouldn't affect the canon. This would almost be a perfect way for Hugh Jackman to return, and Sir Patrick Stewart as well. And it's a very likely way that he could return, but probably not the most likely. And if you missed it, a few days ago, Patrick Stewart in an interview addressed whether or not he would return to the MCU to play the character Professor Xavier. And I shouldn't say return to the MCU, I should say return to play the character and then be a part of the MCU. But he revealed that he spoke with Kevin Feige and that Kevin Feige wanted him back. In the interview, he said, "I met with Kevin Feige a couple of months ago and we had long conversations, and there have been moves and suggestions which include Charles Xavier." But here's where it gets tricky, because he goes on to say not only something that affects the return of his character for Professor Xavier, but Hugh Jackman's return as Wolverine as well. He says, "Here's the problem. If we had not made Logan, then yes, I would probably be ready to get into that wheelchair one more time and be Charles Xavier. But Logan changed all that." And he goes on to say that the reason Logan changed all of that is because two characters died in that movie. Obviously his character, Professor Xavier, and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, and they both said goodbye to their characters. And that leads to actually something pretty positive with the MCU. You see, there's really only two reasons why Hugh Jackman wouldn't return to play his character Wolverine in the MCU one more time, and luckily for us, those two reasons are pretty easy for Marvel Studios to get over. And Hugh Jackman himself has even stated after the release of Logan that there are ways that he could and would come back. And I'll talk about those in just a second, but the two reasons that he wouldn't come back are: 1. His character is dead. He said goodbye to Wolverine, he's at peace with it, and he wouldn't want Wolverine being brought back to life. And the other reason is that he's simply too old to take on a character that he would have to commit to playing for another 10 to 15 years. Both completely understandable reasons to not return to do a cameo for Wolverine one last time, but like I said, luckily for us, they're pretty easy to get around. And one really easy way to get around both of these is the continuity of the new MCU that we live in. The multiverse is real. We can now have things happen in the MCU that we could only dream about happening. And one of the great things about this is that we could have Wolverine return without really reviving the character and without Hugh Jackman having to commit to play the character for many, many years. He could simply appear in a single film in a different reality. The supposed leak from Smart Tom is a perfect example. Doctor Strange opens a portal to a different reality, and there we see Hugh Jackman's Wolverine and Patrick Stewart's Professor Xavier. That puts them in the movie but has absolutely no effect whatsoever. It doesn't revive the characters because it doesn't affect Logan at all. And it's a brief cameo and probably doesn't require Hugh Jackman to get into that super ripped shape that he always has been in to play Wolverine. This is actually exactly what he did in X-Men First Class. When Professor X and Magneto of the past went and saw him in a bar, he told them to basically screw off. It was literally a 5-second cameo in a movie. Now I know some people right now are thinking, but Hugh Jackman said he was done with the character after Logan. Yes, that's true, but let's remember what else he said after Logan. Following the release of Logan, he said that there is one way that he would return to play the character of Wolverine. He said, "The Avengers would prove too much to turn down, because I always loved the idea of Wolverine with that dynamic, with the Hulk obviously, with Iron Man, but there are a lot of smarter people with MBAs who can't figure that out. You never know. At the moment, honestly, if I really did have them there, I probably wouldn't have said this is the last." So let me explain a few things about this because this was in 2017. When Hugh Jackman says, "but there are a lot of smarter people with MBAs who can't figure that out," he's talking about the Disney Fox deal. At this point in time, the rights to Wolverine were with Fox. They weren't with Marvel Studios and Disney yet. Therefore, Wolverine could not, legally and technically, be a part of the MCU and be with the other Avengers. Well, of course, as we know, Marvel Studios now does have the rights to all of the X-Men, including Wolverine. So now it's a very real possibility for Wolverine to be with the Avengers. Granted, the new Avengers and not Iron Man because, of course, he's gone. But the Hulk is definitely still out there, which I'll talk about in a bit. But then at the end when he said, "At the moment, honestly, if I really did have them there, I probably wouldn't have said this is the last." And what he's talking about here, when he says, if I really did have them there, he's talking about the Avengers. If I really did have the Avengers there to be with, I wouldn't have said that this is my last time playing Wolverine in Logan. So Hugh Jackman said that the only way that he would return is if he could be with the Avengers, and now that is possible. And not only is it possible, but it's pretty much confirmed that Kevin Feige has met with Hugh Jackman. Patrick Stewart has confirmed that he met with Kevin Feige to reprise his role for Professor Xavier. There's no doubt that he met with Hugh Jackman as well. Because Wolverine is a fan favorite, and if there's any character that everybody wants to see come over from the Fox family, it's Wolverine. Which leads us to our reports of how Hugh Jackman could return and which film he could return in. He could actually return in many ways that would be perfect for him, but let's talk about the reports. Of course, there's the first one that I already mentioned of him returning in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness for a quick cameo. But we have another report by Mikey Sutton that came out not too long ago that said that he could return in a Hulk vs Wolverine movie. Now this is something that both Hugh Jackman and Mark Ruffalo have expressed interest in the past. And recently, Mark Ruffalo said in an interview that he has an upcoming meeting with Kevin Feige to talk about the future possibilities of the Hulk. And in that same interview, he also said that he would love to see a Hulk vs Wolverine movie. So we can presume that that's one of the movies that he would pitch. And again, Hugh Jackman said in an interview if he could come back and interact with the Hulk inside of the MCU, he would. And the cool thing is that this could be a one-off movie. Yes, Marvel does have the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but not everything has to connect, or if it does, not everything has to be in the same reality now. They can do one-off movies, and they can do movies that don't really affect the canon of the main MCU timeline, which is perfect for Hugh Jackman. He could return and fulfill his fantasy of appearing next to the Hulk, but he wouldn't have to commit to another 10 to 15 years of the character. And now it's been reported that Marvel does have the full rights to the Hulk again, so they could do a Hulk vs Wolverine film and put the Hulk's name in the title, which would, of course, attract so many different viewers, so many people would see that movie. So he could return for that, but the one that he is most likely to return in, of course, is Deadpool 3. Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds are best friends. They are super close, and Ryan Reynolds has been begging Hugh Jackman to return one last time as Wolverine in one of his Deadpool films. Well, now Deadpool is in the MCU, and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine could be in the MCU as well. And the best part about him being in Deadpool 3 is that it would be hilarious, and they would crack jokes at one another's expense. And Deadpool doesn't necessarily have to really affect the MCU. It's been speculated that, yes, of course, Deadpool 3 is is going to be in the MCU. However, the events of Deadpool 3 will most likely not affect the MCU. This will almost be like an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. type of deal. Whatever happens in the main MCU timeline involving the Avengers will affect what happens in the Deadpool movie. However, what happens in the Deadpool movies most likely will not affect the main MCU timeline and what happens with the Avengers films. And this is most likely due to the fact that they want to keep Deadpool rated R. Ryan Reynolds and the Deadpool crew have figured out a way to make the film work. Everybody loves the two Deadpool films. And they don't want to mess it up, but they don't want a movie that's rated R to be in the MCU as well. But again, this gets rid of the two reasons that Hugh Jackman wouldn't return to play his character. If he returned to Deadpool 3, it would be only for one film. And of course, Deadpool has the ability to break the fourth wall, so he could say something like, yeah, technically his character is dead, but I begged him so much that he returned for just one film. Again, this is most likely to happen because Ryan Reynolds is best friends with Hugh Jackman and he's been begging him for years to return to the character. Hugh has already said that he would return if he could be a part of the Avengers team in the MCU, but being with Deadpool, his best friend in the MCU, is probably going to do the trick as well. Patrick Stewart has met with Kevin Feige about reprising the role of Professor Xavier, so it's most likely that Hugh Jackman has met with Kevin Feige as well. And let's be honest, actors say no to returning to roles, but Marvel Studios has the ability to throw a ton of cash at Hugh Jackman. So these reports of Hugh Jackman possibly returning for these three movies are absolutely and entirely possible. Hugh Jackman has said himself that he's open up to returning under certain circumstances, and it seems like those circumstances may be falling into place. Of course, nothing is confirmed right now, but we can always hope. Let me know what movie you would like to see Hugh Jackman's Wolverine return in the MCU. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe with notifications turned on so you can stay up to date on everything relating to the MCU. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.